not protect our children. Period. Take that to the bank.
Dr. Jennifer Luke did a major study on the role of fluoride and how it calcifies the pineal gland. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I'm not sure. No, it's not that the fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. We don't know why the pineal gland produces these little crystals of calcium hydroxyapatite, the same crystals in teeth and bones. But what Jennifer Luke hypothesized is that this little gland would accumulate fluoride like crazy. And sure enough, when she analyzed 11 corpses from London, she found huge amounts of fluoride in these crystals.
9,000 parts per million.
On the crystals. And she estimates it in the whole tissue to be about 300 parts per million. It's a very tiny little gland. And this tiny little gland is very important. It produces melatonin, but it only produces melatonin at night. It's sensitive to light. Melatonin is the hormone of darkness, but it regulates all kinds of biological events from puberty, the age of puberty, through jet lag and sleep patterns and aging. It's a huge amount of work being done on the pineal gland. And when Jennifer Luke found that it accumulated there and also did animal studies which showed that it lowered melatonin production and which in turn was consistent with the earlier onset of puberty, which she also observed. This should have triggered massive research in other countries, particularly fluoridated countries. None, not one single fluoridating country has attempted to reproduce her work.
Don't you think she was ahead of her time?
Oh, absolutely.
And don't you think it's also interesting that the pineal gland has magnetite in it, and magnetite seems to be very important for our ability to navigate and our whole experience of being magnetic beings. This is being disrupted as well in the pineal gland.
I didn't know that, but that's very interesting. But Jennifer Luke, one of the things that she did, and she said was so important, she said, my study was the first study in which I deliberately tried to mimic the conditions of bottle feeding. She delivered to these tiny little Mongolian gerbil pups with a little tiny micro pipette. She delivered fluoridated water, or the control, tap water, non-fluoridated water, delivered this fluoridated solution to them as if they were being bottle fed rather than nurtured by their mums. So she was mimicking the situation that we now have with women that are bottle feeding their babies. But, it's incredible. I sent this PhD thesis to the EPA and other health agencies in the United States and to key people. But there's never been any kind of scientific response. So this is another case of atrocious science. They're working backwards. The easiest way to understand this is that the water fluoridation program has to be protected for whatever reason. It has to be protected. So when any study that comes up that shows harm, it's a junk study. It's a junk science. It's internet, or it's something. It's a bad study. They don't attempt to reproduce it. They don't exercise their superior knowledge of epidemiology and do their own studies and demonstrate X, Y, and Z. They just are content to destroy the studies. And the same thing to scientists. If a scientist says they're opposed to fluoridation, they must be a quack. They must be stupid. This has been their strategy. And the only way that you can understand it is it's become more important in this country and other fluoridating countries, of which, incidentally, there are not many. There's only 8 countries that have more than 50% of their population drinking fluoridated water. But in these countries, it's become more important now to protect this practice than to protect the health of our people.
Clearly. And also, the fact that there is no informed consent on this is beyond me. The other thing is, isn't this a violation of the Nuremberg Code?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Explain this to the public. I really think they should hear.
Well, of course, you hesitate before using this because it's so emotive. We're not accusing dentists or doctors of being Nazis. Okay?
No, of course not. But I'm more talking about the practice and the application of fluoridating water.
The Nuremberg Code came about because we were horrified that scientists, Nazi scientists during World War II, were doing human experiments on people, horrible, horrendous experiments. And out of that experience came the Nuremberg Code, which makes it absolutely clear that if you do an experiment on human beings, you must get their consent. You just can't do it. You can't do what Harold Hodge and his colleagues did at the Manhattan Project, which was to inject plutonium into terminal patients without their knowing that they were doing it. And also, of course, the Tuskegee Institute with the mercury and syphilis and so on. You just cannot give medicine to people or do experiments, medical experiments on people without their informed consent.
How come Harold Hodge had the okay to inject plutonium in patients in a hospital without their knowledge?
God only knows. I mean, it's just horrendous. It's too horrendous. But the importance of Harold Hodge is he was the chairman of the committee that set up the fluoridation trial in Newburgh, Kingston. And all that data was being collected and sent to the Manhattan Project on a daily basis. And what the Manhattan Project, which of course used a huge amount of fluoride in developing the atomic bomb, what they were interested in is getting low dose data on fluoride, just as they were interested in getting low dose data on plutonium to be ready if there were any lawsuits for accidents with fluoride or exposure to fluoride from the workers in their program. So again, it's liabilities that these people seem to have been interested in.
What about Judy Cox? You were talking about Harold Hodge,
Yeah.
but what about the work that he did with Judy Cox in 1950 from the Mellon Institute that the Aluminum Company of America funded?
Yeah, Gerald Cox. Well, you really ought to be talking to Chris Bryson about this because my stuff is secondhand here. But Gerald Cox was a scientist working at the Mellon Institute, which of course is an institute set up by the aluminum industry, Alcoa, and basically did research for industry, and of course gave industry the right to veto whether it was published or not publicly. So the industry has always been interested in getting more information on any pollutant than any possible lawyer or opponent in a court case would have. They need the best science they could get. Now, back in the 1930s, Gerald Cox was working on